Part 31. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 301. Ji-Fei was really confused by the gossip. She didn't expect that there was another person in this complicated ethical relationship. The Qin family was so shocked by Ji-Fei's voice that they couldn't control their facial expressions. Who? Yu, the youngest son of the old man of the Yu family. Having an affair with his eldest brother's new wife? Originally thought that Xuanhuan was whimsical and wanted to have a young mother literature. Now I know that there was an uncle and sister-in-law literature a long time ago. Just at this time, the reception time was almost over, and Yu's father returned to the venue. Seeing his unhappy expression, he was still complaining. Probably complaining that his son and younger brother were unreliable, and he was left to greet the guests alone in the end. Didn't he know that he was not in good health? Yu's father didn't notice the continuous sympathetic eyes from the Qin family. After all, it was quite sympathetic that he could marry such a person who cheated on him in various ways. Ji-Fei was sorting out complicated gossip information. The most important thing was that she hadn't met Xuanhuan yet, so a lot of information was incomplete, and she was eating gossip until her teeth were knocked. However, Qin Xian was already a mature assistant. He pulled Ji-Fei to the balcony. Bai Zioxi seemed to have reacted, with tears in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but Qin Xian hushed at Bai Zioxi. Fortunately, Bai Zioxi was innocent enough and still trapped in her own emotions. She did not doubt that the two people suddenly came here and eavesdropped with ease. Her mind was now full of Yu's promise to consider having children with others, and Yu next door was also questioning this matter. She knew that she had caused the matter, she knew it was all her fault, she could give Xuanhuan any compensation, but Yu. She didn't want to give it to others. But she still couldn't help but waver. She naturally believed that Yu would not change his heart. She knew that Yu loved her, but maybe Yu also wanted his own child. After all, Yu did not have a complete family since he was a child. And this was something she could never give him. Bai Zioxi bit her lips in pain, and there was a bloody taste in her mouth. This was a pain that outsiders did not know. She was thinking that maybe Yu still wanted to be with her, but being with her meant that he could not have his own offspring, so he hesitated and wanted to leave a child of his own in this way without her knowing. The more Bai Zioxi thought about it, the more resentful she became, but she felt that she had no right to resent. She had always been simple-minded, and was well protected by her family and Yu, who completely isolated her from these real problems and did not give her the opportunity to think more, but that was like a layer of illusory bubbles, which would eventually burst one day. I just didn't expect that this setback would be so unbearable. If she asked Yu to be with her only and not to agree to Xuanhuan, would it be selfish? However, Bai Zioxi seemed to have forgotten one thing, the photo that caused Xuanhuan's miscarriage, the suspicion that had flashed through her mind, was being revealed next door at this time. The conversation in the next room was accurately transmitted. All three heard Xuanhuan's panicked voice. Unlike Ji-Fei and Bai Zioxi, Qin Xian always analyzed calmly from the perspective of an observer, so he felt strange when he heard Xuanhuan's tone. That was not the way he spoke to someone he had an affair with, but the panic of being discovered by an outsider who was not familiar with him at all. What are you talking about? You heard it wrong. I heard it clearly, the child is gone, it was Yu's girlfriend who caused it, so you threatened Yu to commit adultery with you, and wanted to have another child behind my eldest brother's back, so that my eldest brother would raise the grandson as a son. You are really good, so you targeted Yu again. Yu's face was full of anger, like a person who was cheated on. In Xuanhuan's eyes, it was the anger of the secret being discovered by her husband's relatives. Xuanhuan's face was pale. No evidence. If you still don't admit it, then I will let my eldest brother take you to the hospital to see if there is still a child. Kay Yuner's tears fell instantly. This was really threatened. As a result, when she cried, Yu Yi on the opposite side was stunned. What do you want? Stop me, or expose me, Kay Yuner asked hoarsely. She didn't know what to do for a moment. This accident was something she had never thought of. Would all her plans fail? Yu Yi's face changed several times, but he said, I know your goal is to continue to be the wife of the Yu family, but, you have to give me an answer. That child, the aborted child, is not my eldest brother's, right? Ji Fei was in a daze and only reacted when she heard this. Oh my god, what is this? At the family gathering 2 months ago, Yu Yi drank too much and slept in the room of the old house, but he didn't expect to sleep with someone in a daze. When he woke up, he found that it was his eldest brother's new wife. He was scared. Oh, no, what on earth is Kay Yuner going to do? The Qin family also waited for a long time and finally got the follow-up explanation. But why does this sound so wrong? Since it is in the old house, everyone has their own room. Yu Yi is in his own room, how could he sleep with Kay Yuner? And since Yu Yi was drunk, did Kay Yuner also drink too much? So this must have been Kay Yuner's own will. But according to Kay Yuner's statement before, even if there was an unfaithful target, it was Yu Yu. How could it be with Yu Yi? The more Qin Xian listened, the deeper his frown deepened. He always felt that the logic didn't make sense. Yu Yi couldn't understand why things turned out like this. Even if he was favored and his private life was not clean, he couldn't be a cuckold to his family, so he didn't dare to face Kay Yuner at all, for fear that she would wake up and make a fuss. At that time, he didn't have time to think about what was going on. He took advantage of the fact that she didn't wake up and ran away. Damn, this guy really ran away faster than a rabbit. Is he afraid of being blackmailed by the outrageous sister? The Qin family was also speechless. This man didn't seem to be able to take any responsibility. After calming down, Yu Yi secretly inquired and found that there was no movement from his eldest brother. He was slightly relieved. He thought it was just a one-night stand and he kept his dignity after the accident, but he didn't expect to hear that his eldest sister-in-law was pregnant a month later. This really made him unable to sleep at night, because according to the time, the child might also be his, but he didn't dare to question it and could only be a turtle. Qin family, if you want to be a turtle, just be a good one. Now that the child is gone, you have the nerve to question me. Are you regretting it and want to confirm whose child it is? What do you mean by asking this? That child must be my husband's. Kay Yuner suddenly became nervous. Really? It's obvious that my eldest brother's fertility has been a problem for a long time. Who knows if he can still be with you? Maybe it's because he can't, so you were in the old house that night. Kay Yuner's face turned pale in an instant. Yu Yi paused and didn't have the heart to continue. Anyway, the two of them knew it well. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yu Yuze. Chapter 302. I see, because he heard that Kay Yuner was planning something like that with Yu Yu. He had already begun to suspect that Kay Yuner deliberately ran to his room and crawled into bed that night. After all, he remembered that he was clearly drunk and fell unconscious. It seemed that Yu Yu helped him back to the room, so there was no way he would force Kay Yuner. And Kay Yuner sleeping with him must have been premeditated. They had not exchanged a few words before, so they must be trying to gain something from this. Maybe, just because he wanted to consolidate his position, he wanted to have a child with him. Qin family, is that really the case? Qin Xian was slightly startled. There was Yu Yu in this story? Why did he have a weird idea? Shouldn't it be? Qin Xian was full of suspicion, but looked calm, and then silently took out his mobile phone. Bai Zioxi, who was caught up in his own emotions, listened in a daze, and even listened with concentration. Bai Zioxi, isn't that child his uncle's? Then wouldn't it be, A big joke that she and Yu were being held hostage because of this? Bai Xiaoxi's expression froze. Yu slowed down and continued, I only ask for the truth. If you tell the truth, I can promise you, this secret will not be told. Kei Yuner was stunned and looked at Yu in disbelief. She didn't believe that the other party would be so good. Maybe he had other requirements. Seeing her defensive look, Yu said angrily, is it any good for me to tell you? I'm not stupid. Are you stupid? You have other thoughts. I didn't expect you to be such a turtle. Instead of shrinking your head, you stretch your head to eat meat. Ji Fei's heart suddenly became sarcastic, obviously seeing something. The Qin family suddenly became curious, what do you mean? Didn't Yu just want to know if the child was his? Qin Xian raised his eyebrows, he, why do you have to know? Tisk, 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 because of that incident, I carefully observed Kei Yuner for a long time, and because they were suspected of having a common child, so it was because I was paying attention, or I had a damn possessiveness, and I actually felt that Kei Yuner wanted him even if he was rebellious. If you borrow someone else to give birth to a child, you shouldn't provoke you should continue to look for him. If Kei Yuner chooses Yu instead of him at this moment, he will feel that he has lost to his eldest nephew and feel unhappy. After all, Kei Yuner is already his woman, and even almost became the mother of his child. Even for the sake of the little one, for the sake of their lives, he and Kei Yuner could never be together openly, and he didn't want Kei Yuner to hook up with Yu. So now this is an awkward hint, a reminder, a secret nod to the self-recommended pillow mat. I really laughed. I thought he didn't mean to cuckold his elder brother before, but now I think. Probably too speechless, Ji Fei complained endlessly about Yu. The Qin family almost burst into tears after hearing this. He looked more sympathetically at Yu's father, who was preparing for the wedding in the distance. Do you know that your brother wants to continue the family line for you so much? It's all about competition for jobs. Although the Qin family members in the wealthy circle know that the views of people in the wealthy circle are fluid, this is the first time they have seen it flow so fast. It was just an accidental design before, but now you are actively writing uncle-sister-in-law literature. One word. However, without Ji Fei's voice, Bai Xiaoxi, as the only person who heard the conversation, was actually confused and had no idea what Yu wanted to express. Naturally, Kei Yuner, who was talking to Yu, couldn't figure it out. He just thought that Yu felt that exposing them would be of no benefit to him, so he might as well use threats. Kei Yuner could only think of rich families competing for property. Maybe Yu could be developed into a partner by her. In short, since the other party didn't tell the matter to death, she still had a chance to make a comeback. While Kei Yuner was thinking about it, Yu was getting impatient and was about to just spread out and say forget it. He even took a step forward to get closer to Kei Yuner. As a result, Kei Yuner suddenly said in a low voice, your guess is correct, that is my and Yu's child. One sentence was like a thunder on the ground, which directly made the people in the two rooms feel the punishment of 5 thunders. Ji Fei and Qin Xian, impossible. The color on Bai Xiaoxi's face seemed to fade away in an instant. All the uncomfortable things she had seen Kei Yuner and Yu get along with were connected together, and finally connected to the photo. And think about what Yu said just now. His heart seemed to be pinched hard, and tears fell silently. And Yu also froze, looking at Kei Yuner in disbelief. Could it be that they had already hooked up? Kei Yuner didn't understand his reaction and just followed, why do you look like this? Isn't this the truth you want? You obviously know that Yu and I slept together in the old house. Although it was an accident, you are right. Your elder brother had no ability to get me pregnant. It was the accident that night that made me pregnant. But now that the child is gone, it was Bai Xiaoxi who caused it. Yu gives me another child, but maybe he doesn't want to make any more mistakes. When Bai Xiaoxi heard this, he could hardly stand, collapsed, and fell to the ground. Jifei and Qin Xian were stunned. Faced with this statement, Yu Yi's face almost flashed with colorful lights, and he stammered for a long time before saying, how, is it him? Wait, no, it's not an accident. So that night, you originally planned to. Why did you set up Yu Yu's bed? An unnatural look finally flashed across Kei Yuna's face, as if someone had uncovered her veil. It's not a plan, I just. Kei Yuna couldn't explain it for the time being. And Jifei couldn't hold it anymore. This tossing and turning melon was simply too explosive. Her inner voice almost burst out. So, it was Kei Yuna who made a mistake. She thought she was sleeping with Yu Yu and that the child was theirs. No wonder, she always treated Yu Yu with that attitude. I understand. Yu Yi just said that he ran away as soon as he woke up in the morning. So Kei Yuna didn't find out the truth. She thought Yu Yu ran away because he didn't want to face it. She believed that Yu Yu must know what happened between the two of them, and that the child might be related to him, so this confusing situation happened. Yu Yi's conversation just now was a mess, but he got the truth out. Wait, now Yu Yi is thinking of backing out since the other party made a mistake from beginning to end. Why would he take the risk, anyway? No one knows that he did that, so he can be a coward again. You are really an expert at shifting the blame. Are you planning to let Yu Yu take the blame? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 303. When the Qin family heard this, they were all dumbfounded. They just happened to see Yu Yu coming down to look for someone. Their sympathetic eyes shifted directly from Yu's father to Yu Yu. One was cuckolded, and the other took the blame. This is simply a father and son who are wronged. Qin Xian didn't expect there would be so many misunderstandings. It can only be said that some people probably only want to see what they want to see, so they never doubt whether there is anything unreasonable in it. It's just, Kei Yuna really had her eyes on Yu Yu from the beginning, so they were really involved before, but Yu Yu didn't remember this girl. Just thinking about it, I heard Kei Yuna next door finally speak. Maybe Yu Yi's face was too colorful, which made Kei Yuna uneasy. Kei Yuna was also quite good at judging people. She thought Yu Yi seemed to be more emotional and a bit chauvinistic. Maybe it would be more useful to win sympathy, pretend to be pitiful, and seek pity. So facing her own misunderstanding questioning, she finally chose to confess. I didn't mean it. Kei Yuna's voice was a little trembling. That night, I really, just wanted to leave the last good memory and let our relationship have an end. So I took advantage of him being drunk. I just didn't expect to get pregnant. I didn't plan to let Yu Yu recognize the child, so I didn't talk to him. I just didn't think that the child was unlucky and couldn't come to this world, but instead put us in trouble. Kei Yuna's voice was sad and pitiful, and Yu Yi on the opposite side was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Did you know each other before, and did you have a relationship? Yu Yi was really curious and surprised more than other feelings. Yes, we knew each other a long time ago, and we were together. Kei Yuna's voice was more serious than ever. What's the situation? Lied? It must be Kei Yuna who lied to Yu Yi. After all, Yu Yu didn't remember her at all. How could it be? Is she a plastic surgery monster, who changed her identity? Qin Xian raised his eyebrows. Impossible. Maybe just like the accident that night, Kei Yuna thought she had feelings. After all, since college, they all knew each other's situation, and they also knew that from then on, Yu Yu had only Bioxy in his life. They were inseparable in college. Later, the two went abroad to study. They had agreed to go to the same country, but the Bai family temporarily changed Bioxy's country, causing the two to have a long-distance relationship. They kept in touch every day until Yu Yu couldn't bear it anymore. In less than half a year, he chose to drop out of school and went to find Bai Xiaoxi. How could there be another woman with that sticky feeling? Jifei and Qin Xian both denied it from their own ideas, and then they heard faint sobs. Only then did they notice that Bai Xiaoxi was still there. At this time, Bai Xiaoxi seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Because of the preconceived notion of the photo, it was difficult for her to completely believe Yu like Qin Xian and Jifei. She covered her mouth tightly with her hands, but still couldn't hold back the tears. Jifei quickly squatted down and hugged Bai Xiaoxi, letting her cry in her arms, while consoling her. "It must be fake, all fake, you have to believe Yu, we will go and ask for clarification later. This kind of thing is still easy to solve. If the melon next door has not been eaten yet, Jifei can take Bai Xiaoxi to find Yu now. But since she has already started to lie to outsiders and spread rumors, she must find out her entire lie and ask for clarification at that time, so as not to leave any misunderstandings and cause problems again. This kind of thing that accidentally leaves a flaw only happens in a melodrama. With Jifei, the melon-eating god, here, it must not happen. The conversation next door is still going on. Yu naturally expressed disbelief at Kayuner's statement. This time, Kayuner brought a sour love story. It turns out that Kayuner and Yu are high school classmates. One is a child from an ordinary family, and the other is a rich young master. Moreover, they are not classmates, but only in the same grade, so it is naturally unlikely that they know each other. But at that time, Yu had not met Bai Xiaoxi yet. He was still the gloomy playboy who was unhappy with everything and full of world weariness. The most he did at school was to skip classes, go to the infirmary to find a bed to sleep, and then go to the bar as a night owl at night. And the first time Kayuner saw him was in the infirmary. She fainted during the physical education class due to anemia and was sent to rest. She slept on the bed next to Yu. In a daze, Kayuner saw the noble young master with a very deceptive appearance through the bed curtains blown by the wind. According to her, he was an angel who fell into the mortal world, but his whole body was full of loneliness. When he heard the description, Jifei really pulled away from the speechless mood and laughed. Angel, angel who fell into the mortal world. Qin Xian's mouth twitched. Maybe this is what is called the beauty in the eyes of the beholder. But Bai Xiaoxi's eyes finally changed, revealing a hint of envy, probably because she envied Kayuner for knowing Yu earlier than her. At that time, I fell in love with him at first sight, and secretly asked about him, and then I knew about him. It turned out that he had no mother since he was a child, and his father didn't care about him, so he seemed so lonely. I felt sorry for him and wanted him to be less lonely, so I often went to the infirmary to find him. At first I didn't dare to talk to him, but one day he had a fever and asked for water while sleeping. I finally got to know him. Then our time together in the infirmary became a secret between us. At that time he was very nice to me and often gave me food and drink, but he never talked about his inner depression. He just occasionally stared blankly outside. I really wanted to get into his heart, but the time was too short. We were admitted to different universities. I didn't even have time to say goodbye before I lost contact with him. Although it sounds like a depressed youth campus crush, why is it so strange? If they really got along for so long, how come you didn't remember it? He didn't lose his memory as for high school, he didn't feel like making friends, he only remembered his younger brothers and lackeys. Qin Xian, maybe it's beautifying memory. And most importantly, what era was that? There was no contact information. How could she lose contact? Could it be that they were so familiar with each other, but Yu never gave her any contact information, he didn't even add her as a friend. Qin Xian almost laughed out loud. Fifa, I found a blind spot. But Kayuner told this story so beautifully that Bai Xiaoxi was shaken, and even felt that the two of them had really had a wonderful moment of throbbing in high school. Then what about myself, who was targeted by Yu right after entering college? Of course, It was not only Bai Xiaoxi who was affected here, but also the fool Yu Yi was moved. Asked, then when did you say you were together? Kei Yuner lowered her eyes and said, I tried to find out about him, but when I found him, he was already dating Bai Xiaoxi. So I could only pay attention to him silently, and never dared to approach him again until I heard that he went abroad to study without Bai Xiaoxi. I appeared in front of him again. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yu Zhe. Chapter 304. Hearing this, Ji Fei didn't know how to comment on Li Pug. So, what level of love brain is this? It's quite inspiring for a man. She studies hard, saves money, and tries to stay in the same school. Not many people can do this for the person they secretly love. The Qin family members who were watching the show silently admired Kei Yuner. She even chased him abroad. Qin Xian raised his eyebrows. During that time, he didn't hear that anyone appeared around Yu Yu. Instead, he flew to Bai Xiaoxi every few days, as if he was suffering from lovesickness. At that time, Yu Yu's catchphrase was one day without seeing you feels like 3 years. And at this time, Bai Xiaoxi seemed to have remembered that time. At that time, she didn't deliberately break the agreement. It was because she had a problem with her body. Her family decided to secretly take her to another place for treatment, so she didn't study with Yu Yu, but later Yu Yu still chased her. At that time, Yu Yu's feelings were so sincere. How could he fall in love with someone else just because she didn't stay with him? Could it be that he was shaken because he knew her situation at that time? Bai Xiaoxi didn't want to think so, but she couldn't help feeling inferior. Kei Yuner's memories were like a slow knife to Bai Xiaoxi, and at this moment, the knife was about to pierce her heart. It seems that they didn't break up at that time, Yu Yi asked in confusion. Kei Yuner smiled bitterly and said, I found out after I went there, but at the same time I also got a piece of news. Kei Yuner's tone suddenly changed, and Yu Yi was stunned. What? It turns out that Yu Yu was forced to be with Bai Xiaoxi by your family elders, and the purpose was to marry into the Bai family. You used him as a tool for marriage and forced him to lose his right to freedom and happiness, Kei Yuner said, as if she felt so sorry for Yu Yu, and even looked at Yu Yi with resentment. What marriage, what forced? Sure enough, what Kei Yuner said to Bai Xiaoxi last time really meant this. How did she hear and see it? The Qin family also found it very ridiculous to hear this. If Yu Yu wanted to deceive people, he didn't need to act to this extent. Even outsiders like them, who occasionally saw the two of them, could see the sweet and simple happiness between the idiots. How could it be an act? Let's take a step back and say, does Yu Yu need to act? He is too lazy to act filial to his father, and he doesn't go back to the Yu family unless it is necessary. Can he still be threatened? Is Kei Yuner deceiving Yu Yi or deceiving herself? Qin Xian has naturally judged that it is self-deception. Maybe he was unwilling at the beginning. Hearing other people's malicious speculation, he found confidence and excuses for his immoral behavior of trying to pursue other people's boyfriends. After all, outside the rich, some people like to gossip, and think that everything they imagine is mainly for interests, as if everyone is a tool for marriage. When Bai Xiaoxi heard this, she became even more confused. Kei Yuner was so sure about what she said. Could it be that? Thinking of this, Bai Xiaoxi was still shaking her head desperately. Even though her trust in Yu Yu was about to fall apart, she still couldn't help but believe that the man was sincere to her. Maybe she was just distracted by Kei Yuner accidentally, maybe Yu Yu just cared a little about her situation, maybe. It can be said that if Bai Xiaoxi was a completely healthy person, she would not doubt herself to this extent. In the end, it was the accidental superposition of misunderstandings that destroyed her self-confidence and innocence. Faced with Kei Yuner's statement, Yu Yi was speechless. After all, Yu Yi spent little time at home, so how could he know what was going on? but it is true that the Yu family is very happy to marry the Bai family. Because of their relationship, the two families have cooperated on many projects, and the Bai family has even made some concessions. It can be said that the Yu family will stick to the marriage between the two families, even if Yu wants to break up now. So, Yu and Bai Xiaoxi were just pretending. When you were abroad, you were secretly together, Yu said. But K Yuner didn't nod in response, but said directly, Yu is a very good person. Even if he was forced, he would not play both sides. It's just that he was too depressed. I still remember that period of time, he was worried and absent-minded. Finally, one day he couldn't hold it anymore. He cried while drinking, and I accompanied him to vent. That night, he hugged me and said that he loved me very much, and he wanted to be with me, and then but the next day, he disappeared. When I returned to school, I heard that he dropped out. He was forced by your Yu family to make a decision and went to find Bai Xiaoxi. K Yunus' words were so sincere that even Qin Xian was shaken for a moment. If it weren't for Ji Fei's complaints, Qin Xian would have doubted his brother. Outrageous sister, although you seem to have told a sad story, I can only eat a similar story from Yu's side, but it's completely wrong with what you said. The Qin family was shocked, finally. So, what is the truth? Qin Xian's heartbeat was a little faster, and he became curious. He was indeed often worried and absent-minded when he went abroad to study, because this buddy was in love, and his mind was full of Bai Xiaoxi. He was adjusting to the time difference every day, contacting people, making friends, having parties, and studying. These things have been completely forgotten by Yu except for being occasionally dragged out by a few wealthy acquaintances who studied abroad with him to play and kill time waiting for Bai Xiaoxi to wake up. He has no other social activities. The Qin family, so, it's K Yunus' own imagination again? Qin Xian, he still doesn't remember K Yunur, so K Yunur is just one of those passers-by who are stereotyped in social networking. As for the crying that can't be held back, according to the time, she will be suspended from school the next day. That's the matter of Bai Xiaoxi. In an instant, everyone who can hear the inner voice can't help but be confused. Is there any other gossip? Alas, Yu also really likes Bai Xiaoxi. Bai Xiaoxi was fooled by her family to study abroad somewhere else and go to the hospital for treatment. She didn't know what disease she had at that time. She thought it was dysmenorrhea and recuperation because she was embarrassed. Every time Yu came to visit her, she was not in the hospital and didn't let Yu know. It's just that Yu loves Bai Xiaoxi so much, so he will naturally pay attention to the changes in her body, which eventually made Yu suspicious and investigated. At first, the Bai family found out and lied to him that it was recuperation, but how could Yu not control Bai Xiaoxi's physical condition? After an investigation, it was found that Bai Xiaoxi's uterus had a problem. The treatment was to save her life, but she would never be able to have children in the future. The Qin family and Qin Xian were shocked when they heard the news. The Bai family kept the news a secret, not wanting people to look at their precious daughter with sympathy or strange eyes, so the wealthy families in the country didn't know about it. It was not until now that they accidentally learned about it because of the melon eating system. Qin Xian also understood why Bai Xiaoxi's feelings for Yu were so shaken, because she thought K Yunur was really pregnant with Yu's child, which she couldn't give to Yu. She actually had a huge sense of guilt in her heart, and she always felt sorry for Yu and unworthy of Yu's love. Maybe girls don't necessarily have to have children, but she is different. She has always known Yu's family problems. She knows that Yu wants to be a competent parent with her and love and raise their children. And she also likes children very much, but after the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 305. After Yu found out the truth, he pretended that he didn't know and continued to have a sweet relationship with Bai Xiaoxi. After all, Yu was more worried that Bai Xiaoxi would be sad after knowing the truth than that he didn't have a child. The Qin family was moved by what they heard. Qin Xian was not surprised. After all, in Yu's view, Bai Xiaoxi was the most beautiful existence in the world. His biggest dream was to protect this pure beauty and hope that Bai Xiaoxi would be carefree for the rest of her life. Alas, in fact, Qin Xian and the others didn't know that the two people who loved each other so much had once broken up. This voice immediately aroused everyone's curiosity. Isn't it indifferent? Bai Xiaoxi was smart just this once, but it happened to be the worst time. She still found out about her situation and then broke up with Yu heartbrokenly. So the crying and dropping out of school that Xuanhuan said was because Bai Xiaoxi broke off contact with Yu, and Yu gave up everything to stay with Bai Xiaoxi. The Qin family was relieved immediately. It was such an ups and downs road of love. It was embarrassing for these two young people. Wait, who is the person Xuanhuan is talking about sleeping with her? Could it be that Yu was in too much pain, had sex after drinking, and mistook Xuanhuan for Bai Xiaoxi? Is it so ridiculous? Qin Xian reacted quickly. After all, Ji Fei's inner voice had mentioned a very important piece of information before. Yu only had Bai Xiaoxi as a woman, so no matter how much Xuanhuan said, it could not change the fact that Yu had never touched her from beginning to end. Ji Fei seemed to have thought of this and couldn't help complaining. Obviously, Xuanhuan didn't exist in that memory of studying abroad the first time Yu formally met Xuanhuan. She was already a stepmother. In other words, it is very likely that Xuanhuan has mistaken someone again, just like the uncle-sister-in-law misunderstanding this time. Damn, it's really amazing. Does she really think of every man she has slept with as Yu? It really is. I'm divorced from Pu. Fortunately, Bai Xiaoxi is simple and easy to coax. Yu has repeatedly expressed in front of her that he actually hates children. He used to go along with Bai Xiaoxi, but she misunderstood him. So this moment has no effect on him. He likes a world with only the two of them, and is afraid that there will be children competing with him for favor. Under the offensive of sweet words, Bai Xiaoxi was really coaxed silly, and the two of them became stupid lovers again. The reason why the Bai family has not agreed to their marriage until now is also because of concerns. During the period when the two were together, they gave concessions to the Yu family many times. After all, they also know that the Yu family hopes to have many children and good fortune, and blood ties. If Yu really wants to be with Bai Xiaoxi, then even if he wants children in the future, he can only adopt them. The Qin family thinks that the Bai family is still very reliable. Qin Xian thinks that if the Yu family knows the truth, they will definitely not agree to the two of them being together. No wonder Yu and Bai Xiaoxi stay abroad all year round. It turns out that they want to get out of the control of the Yu family as much as possible. The Bai family is also honest. What's the point of giving benefits to the Yu family? Yu has a bad relationship with the Yu family. If they knew what Yu did for Bai Xiaoxi, they would probably praise the Yu family to the sky. It's better to find an opportunity to remind them later, so that the honest people will not be bullied. The Qin family nodded, indeed. Qin Xian was slightly stunned. He cared about every word of his wife's words, so he reacted in an instant. What does it mean to know what Yu did for Bai Xiaoxi? Is there anything else that Yu did that everyone doesn't know? However, Ji Fei didn't think about this, so everyone naturally couldn't hear it. And Xuanhuan was still accusing over there, and she seemed to be crying, as if the dawn of her love with Yu was cruelly suppressed and hurt again and again. After he left, I wanted to contact him, but there was no response. I even came to work in Yu's company to wait for him. But fate played a trick on me. Your elder brother fell in love with me. My parents betrayed me after they knew about it. I can no longer be with Yu openly, but I can't bear to leave him. I want him to be happy, even if it's not me who makes him happy, so I can only put away all my feelings, be his stepmother quietly, and pretend that we don't know each other. Yu Yi listened blankly. Kei Yuner said so sincerely that Yu Yi believed it completely. He didn't expect that his eldest nephew hid so deeply and watched his father marry his former woman. He dared to sleep with the woman who was already his stepmother and make a child. He even planned to make another one. Isn't this just to maintain this unethical relationship? I used to think that this kid was rebellious, but I didn't expect that he was really filial. Yu Yi complained crazily, and seemed to have forgotten that he almost had a deep brotherly love just now. It's not us who are wrong, it's your Yu family. It's your oppression that forced Yu to get entangled with Bai Xiaoxi, and I just want more bargaining chips to help Yu escape from your bondage, Kei Yuner said indignantly. But Yu was really confused. After all, even if they didn't have much contact, Yu could see that Yu liked Bai Xiaoxi very much. So the eldest nephew was pretending everything. He had been pretending for so many years. No wonder he kept dragging his feet and didn't get married. As if he suddenly thought of something, looking at Kei Yuner in front of him so sad, it was really pitiful. Perhaps it was the psychology of pity for the beauty. Yu couldn't control his mouth and suddenly said, "Don't worry, they won't be together." Ji Fei and Qin Xian, who were eavesdropping on these words, were stunned. Kei Yuner suddenly raised her head, as if she had found a support. A strange light flashed in her eyes, and she looked at Yu expectantly. Yu said directly, "I also learned by accident that Bai Xiaoxi cannot get pregnant." "Oh, he really knows." "Oh, it turns out that this kid's mother is very dedicated to the family fight. She has the means to hide it, and she has set her sights on the marriage couple who are most favored by the family. After all, Yu and Yu are about the same age. I wanted to. They looked for loopholes to sabotage the two of them, but after investigation, they discovered that Bai Xiaoxi had a physical problem. According to the tradition of the Yu family, such a daughter-in-law is useless no matter how good she is, so the mother kept the secret very kindly. I just hope that Yu and Bai Xiaoxi will lock up and have no future." He didn't expect to be exposed by his son. The Qin family frowned when they heard this. After all, it was the secret of the Bai family, and Yu just kept his mouth shut. There must be some underlying desire to please Kei Yuner. Qin Xian also frowned. He was now very curious about Kei Yuner's reaction. The next second, I heard Kei Yuner asking excitedly. After Yu finished explaining, Kei Yuner remained silent for a long time and said, "I understand." The voice seemed a little hoarse. Yu seemed to have just realized that he shouldn't have been exposed, but he immediately comforted himself. At least he knew the secret of Xioma's literature and could continue to let his mother control Yu. And she didn't look like Kei Yuner would threaten people with such a secret. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 306. Tisk, I think Kei Yuner is about to smile crookedly at this moment. Maybe he has already figured out how to use this news to force the two of them to break up. He also claims to be the messenger of justice who saved Yu trouble, but I also want to see what kind of face she will have when she exposes everything and Yu still firmly chooses Bai Xiaoxi. No, forget it, this is Bai Xiaoxi's wound, it's better not to open it. Just as he was thinking about it, Bai Xiaoxi, who had become quiet after being hugged by him, felt his body tremble. He must have been trembling before, but Ji Fei was so excited about eating melon that she didn't notice it. At this moment, Bai Xiaoxi's mood swings were getting bigger and bigger, so Ji Fei felt it. Ji Fei immediately looked at Bai Xiaoxi, feeling heartbroken. Those bright and lovely girls seemed to have lost their souls at this moment, and the pain began to materialize on her face. His eyes were dull and broken, his face was red due to emotional breakdown, and the veins on his forehead were bulging, as if he would faint from excitement in the next second. All of a sudden Ji-Fei was at a loss. Qin Xian sighed silently. Bai Xiaoxi probably didn't even realize that a simple person like her had such a problem with her body. No one else had noticed that she was hiding such a secret before, which proved her family and Yu coaxed her away from the pain completely, so she didn't care anymore. It's a pity that an accident like meeting Kei Yuner destroyed everything that those who loved her had worked hard to build. It can only be said that it is too unlucky. Just at this time, Bai Xiaoxi's cell phone vibrated in his pocket. Ji-Fei saw the caller ID with sharp eyes, and ignored it. He took the phone, pressed the call directly, and then sent a message to Yu to come over quickly, while his wife coaxed herself. If you don't coax it will be too late. Although Yu is also innocent, he incurred this romantic debt and must be held responsible to the end. When Yu saw that the address to which the message was sent was the one next to the room just now, he suddenly started to sweat all over his body. Faced with Bai Xiaoxi's matter, he didn't dare to take any chances, and immediately ignored the small group who was talking to them, got up and ran away. Just now, he was still turning a corner to remind Yu that he was not sure about the distance between him and Kei Yuner, but now he saw someone running away. What is this doing? Jingyan asked curiously. It's rare to see him so anxious that his face turned pale. Is there some trouble? Luo Fei asked. Guo Yelan didn't waste time analyzing, stood up directly, pulled Senting and left. Senting was stunned. What to do? I have a hunch, there's something wrong. Guo Yelan immediately raised her eyebrows and said, maybe it's that temptress who is up to something else. Let's go and keep an eye on Yu. If this kid dares to hurt such a simple and lovely Xiaoxi, you will be responsible. Beat people up. Jingyan and Luo Fei, who were told this, had no choice but to follow. They couldn't help but wonder, had their small group ever loved eating melons so much before? A large group of people followed Yu's back in front. On the other side, Yu had finished telling Kei Yuner everything that should be said and shouldn't be said. Kei Yuner seemed to be preoccupied and expressed that she was tired. Kei Yuner didn't understand what Yu wanted to do from beginning to end. Anyway, after venting his anger, the other party didn't threaten anything. He let Yu leave on the grounds that the ceremony was about to start and someone would be coming soon. Yu was actually confused inside. After all, he hid a big secret, so he took advantage of the situation and left first. As a result, as soon as he came to the aisle, he saw Yu coming. Yu's expression was a little subtle immediately. Why are you here? Yu asked. Yu suddenly raised his eyebrows playfully, and was about to make some yin and yang sentences to scare people, but when he saw the huge small group behind him, he was suddenly shocked. What's going on? Didn't Yu rush to have a private meeting with Kei Yuner? After all, both of them have that kind of adultery, and there are still things that have not been discussed. Why did you bring a bunch of people here? Yu just thought that he had misunderstood. Maybe a group of people came up to find a place to rest because they thought it was noisy below. Without paying much attention, he passed them and left. Naturally, Yu was not in the mood to care about the group of people behind him and rushed directly into the room. The moment he opened the door, he was stunned. He didn't pay attention to Ji-Fei and Qin Xian here, but when he saw Bai Xiaoxi crying, his eyes turned red with distress. After all, Bai Xiaoxi had never cried so miserably since the breakup a few years ago. Yu's mind was already full of bad ideas and he rushed forward to explain. Fortunately, after the previous conversation next door, Qin Xian closed the balcony window in advance, so there was no need to worry about the partition wall having airs. The small group that followed Yu were shocked when they saw the three people inside. However, Guo Yelan reacted quickly and immediately pushed everyone into the house, closed the door, and then excitedly said to Ji-Fei, "There is indeed a melon." The corners of Ji-Fei's mouth twitched. Why were so many people here? At this time, Yu was already hugging Bai Xiaoxi, feeling extremely distressed. Zioxy, why are you crying? Did you hear something? Did you misunderstand something? I can explain it. Anyway, remember that I love you, I only love you, I. You saw that Bai Zioxy was just crying and didn't know what to say. Luo Fei stepped forward and asked Qin Xian, what's going on? Jing Yan said, did you go to find Zioxy? Seeing Bai Zioxy crying so miserably, Senting had already gone to find a towel and hot water. Guo Yelan came close to Ji Fei's eyes, her eyes were shining, which made Ji Fei very stressed. Seeing that Yu couldn't explain clearly, Qin Xian said directly, about 15 minutes ago, we accidentally found Zioxy crying here. We probably heard the conversation next door before. Everyone suddenly became curious. Yu finally found his own language and said immediately, did you hear what I said to Kayunur? Bai Zioxy suddenly burst into tears even more. Yu held Bai Zioxy's face and said distressedly, believe me. Bai Zioxy was stunned, and actually cried when he was told to stop. That was all a lie to Kayunur. I'm worried that crazy woman Kayunur will expose the miscarriage. I'm afraid that the Yu family will blame you and force me to break up with you, but I definitely can't live without you. Yes, but I am also afraid that they will stain your eyes, so I have already thought about it. After the wedding is over, I will take you back to our little home abroad immediately, and cut off contact directly without coercion. That is why I said to think about it and let you this woman, don't mess around. My baby, how could I mess with her? Am I so immoral? I said I hate children, let alone have any children with her. Everyone was confused about the cause and effect, and their minds were buzzing with some exciting information. All of a sudden, all kinds of doubts couldn't help but pop up. Ji Fei could only help them supplement their knowledge about eating melons. What? It's caused by the creek. It's impossible. According to my experience of eating melons, it must be the woman who caused it, Guo Yelan said immediately. You actually made such a disgusting request, Senting couldn't help but cursed. Luo Fei said, if such a troublesome person wants to marry your father, don't you need to say anything. His father is currently suffering from the pain of losing his son. He may not stand by Yu's side. He may even be beaten down by the other party. Leaving directly is the right choice. Don't go head to head with bad people, Jing Yan analyzed. After Yu finished speaking, he saw Bai Zioxy just looking at him blankly, with tears still flowing silently. He suddenly became anxious and took out his mobile phone to prove himself. He had even bought a plane ticket, proving that what he said was true. But the next second, Bai Zioxy cried even harder. He keeps shouting Yu's name, which shows how much he likes it, how reluctant he is to let it go, and how sad he is. She wanted to say it, but she was too painful to speak. Yu scratched his head anxiously. I want you to listen to this first and then talk. After Qin Xian finished speaking, he took out his mobile phone. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yu. Chapter 307. As soon as he heard the beginning, Yu's expression was confused. The words my and Yu's child immediately caused Yu's brain to shut down. Everyone else present immediately widened their eyes and stared at Yu. It is estimated that at this moment, they all thought of the 4 words Xiaoma literature in their minds. She's crazy, what the hell? Yu's face turned red, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood after being wronged. Then, as if he remembered something, his expression became distorted. Poor So pitiful, he probably thought about Kayuner's strange attitude towards him before he racked his brains and never thought that Kayuner had such a hidden meaning. Zioxy, you won't listen to her nonsense. How can I have anything to do with her? How could she be my child? Yu said anxiously. Everyone was relieved to hear what he said. What the hell is she doing? Is she deliberately lying to your uncle? Or is she spreading rumors about you? Guo Yelan asked. How did I know? Yu almost broke down and scratched his hair. It was really a shameful rumor made for no reason. The recording was still going on, and Kayuner had already mentioned the accident at the old house that night. Yu immediately said in shock, that night? No, I wasn't very drunk that night, I was just pretending to be drunk. I even called Zioxy good night and then fell asleep. Bai Zioxy seemed to have regained some composure. Thinking of the constant good night calls they received every night when they were not together, a look of confusion suddenly appeared on his face. So she is completely making up the story? Sen Ting asked. Jingyan said, probably, you can't help but know who you are sleeping with. I'm afraid you didn't feel anything when listening to the recording, so you didn't suspect that Yu Yi's tone in the recording was abnormal. So Ji-Fei said directly, what, don't forget, Kayuner said that Yu's father can't have children, so she must have a partner, maybe she didn't lie. Yu immediately shouted that he was wronged and looked at Ji-Fei, Sister Fei, please don't kill me unjustly. Ji-Fei said speechlessly, I want to say, do you want to think about whether there are any conditions that may make her identify the wrong person? She's drunk too, Guo Yelan asked, sleeping with the wrong person? Ah, could it be Yu Yu's brother-in-law? These words immediately made Yu Yi's presence particularly prominent. Yes, why did Yu Yi suddenly appear in this matter? Yu Yu was stunned for a moment and suddenly said, I remembered, my uncle was drunk. When I sent him back to the room, he vomited directly on the bed. I had no choice but to take him to my room to settle down. When the servants finished cleaning up, he refused to leave, so I had no choice but to go to his room to rest. Luo Fei said, if you don't turn on the lights, you and your uncle are about the same size and have similar body shapes. If you run away directly the next morning, it will indeed cause this kind of misunderstanding. Yu immediately felt like he had been cleared of his grievances. He took Bai Zioxy's hand and said, listen, the truth must be like this. How could I do something that is sorry for you? Are you relieved now? Yu smiled. Others were curious about the relationship between Yu Yi and Kayuner. It seems that music has started playing below and the ceremony is about to begin. They are now eating melon here with great interest and no longer interested in caring about the ceremony outside. As for Yu's father being cuckolded, his own son didn't care, and they even less care about it. At this time, the conversation had progressed to the point where Kayuner revealed that she had an emotional relationship with Yu Yu. Yu looked confused again, I didn't even know her before. She is my stepmother. If I want to sleep with my father's woman, will I be sick to death? What the hell is she talking about? Bai Zioxy looked at Yu aggrievedly, still wanting to ask clearly, but there was no need for her to speak, because Kayuner's recording had already begun her youthful days in high school. After hearing what happened, everyone else couldn't help but look at Yu with suspicion. Yu opened his mouth stupidly, and trembled when he heard some descriptions. If he looked carefully, he really had goosebumps all over his body. Have I ever lost my memory? I do like to sleep in the school doctor's office and don't want to interact with others, but, I think about it, there seems to be a time when there was a regular visitor in the school doctor's office. I thought he knew my identity like everyone else. You are here to curry favor with me and become my follower. After all, I am very generous with my actions. I usually give the other person some compensation when I ask someone to run errands. Is she just running errands for me? Obviously Yu didn't even bother to write down the names of those who flattered him, so he didn't even give them their contact information. So to K Yunur, the youth school drama is just a young master and an errand boy in your eyes. Guo Yelan summed it up accurately and almost doubled over with laughter. The corners of other people's mouths also twitched. What's the matter? Ji Fei also laughed sullenly. So is this the so-called secret love and the chaos of one person's war? I guess I will have a psychological shadow of my secret love for literature in the future. When Bai Xiaoxi heard this, he finally gained the courage and immediately said, if you really don't remember her, then you are abroad. Ah! Overseas, Yu was confused again. As the recording continued to play, Yu heard another story. Yu couldn't stand the first sentence. What kind of marriage? I found this wife myself, Yu immediately said angrily. He had finally found true love, and he thought it was the luckiest thing in the world. But to be slandered like this made him really angry. Jingyan sneered, before, the Yu family and the Bai family had no contact at all. She found out what she wanted to see, but she didn't find out what she didn't want to see. This sentence immediately resonated with Ji Fei. I thought it was so strange before, after so many years of misunderstandings, they coincidentally caught up with the TV series. Is there no flaw at all, or were all the flaws avoided by K Yuna on her own initiative? Qin Xian, obviously, some people will fall into the beautiful dreams they weave. Guo Yelan smiled and said, you are not a star, but you can still meet a private life. She fantasizes about you so crazily. I really didn't realize that she is so crazy and went abroad with you. Yu has now begun to recall crazily, have I seen her? Did she make it up? At this time, Qin Xian said, I asked someone to investigate before. K Yunur and you are indeed in the same high school, and later studied abroad in the same school. Yu didn't care why Qin Xian went to check K Yunur for no reason, but just frowned and recalled desperately. It was like he really couldn't remember it at all. Until the recording, the words that made Yu and Bai Xiaoxi's faces change slightly. They both remembered the most painful memory. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 308. Yu immediately looked at Bai Xiaoxi nervously, and then realized that no wonder Bai Xiaoxi was so sad. He must have remembered that the incident was disturbed, so he was led by K Yunur's lies. Damn K Yunur, what on earth are you talking about? How many times will my innocence be destroyed by her? She must be sick and crazy. Yu became furious, and then swore to the sky, I definitely didn't touch it. I don't even remember her existence. Xiaoxi, I only have you. Don't worry, I don't want you to believe me mentally. I will prove it with evidence and I will contact my classmates abroad later. I don't believe it anymore, no one can prove it to me. At this moment, looking at Yu's performance, everyone was actually firmly on Yu's side. Bai Xiaoxi finally cried and threw herself into Yu's arms. I'm sorry, Ayu, I'm sorry, it's me who's not confident, it's me. Yu didn't want Bai Xiaoxi to say those words, nor did he want her to recall those things. His baby should always be pure and beautiful. Yu hugged Bai Xiaoxi, his eyes full of coldness. K Yunur, this crazy woman, made her baby so sad, he would never let her have an easy time. After hearing K Yunur say that he wanted to protect Yu, the others couldn't help but laugh at him, and Yu even sneered. Guo Yelan couldn't help complaining, she imagined herself to be quite great, but it was possible that everyone just fell in love at first sight, or fell in love with each other over time, and chose someone they liked in their right social circle. Isn't it possible? Is it true love to find someone from a completely different world like her? This is more like an impulsive and irrational whim, Senting said coldly. At this moment, Qin Xian suddenly cut off the recording, and the others looked at Qin Xian curiously. Is it over? Luo Fei said. Qin Xian nodded calmly. I thought the two of them would discuss some conspiracy, Jing Yan sneered. They may not be of the same mind. If Yu Yi was with K Yuner that night, then Yu Yi should have realized what the truth was at this time, so he was also hiding everything and letting Yu Yu take the blame. Luo Fei, after speaking, he looked at Yu Yu and said, "This matter is quite troublesome. How do you plan to deal with it?" Yu Yu said angrily, "I will find a way to expose the matter between her and Yu Yi later, and use 2 sticks to plot against me one by one. Then will she talk about the child?" Sen Ting said. "You are stupid. There is a recording. The child is not Father Yu's. Can it be used as her amulet?" Guo Yelan said. "But if you want to prove that the child is not hers, you can only use recording." "I'm afraid it will be difficult for Yu Yu to prove himself," Jing Yan said. "By the way, what's going on with that child, Zioxi? Please tell me in detail," Guo Yelan immediately asked curiously. Bai Zioxi had stopped crying now, and then she remembered the photo. "Now that I think about it, it must have been the so-called gathering of international students on the last day when I was studying abroad. I was drunk and someone took a photo of the two of them together. At that time, Yu Yu was so preoccupied that he didn't even care who was sitting next to him. But others would not think so. If photos and recordings come into contact, it is really a double-edged sword, and it is very likely that Yu Yu will be deceived. Things are indeed very difficult. That guy must have done it on purpose. He gave you a flaw and pretended to be dragged down by you. This is how court dramas are played," Guo Yelan said. "I really don't know what happened at that time. I just wanted to grab my phone to watch it when my mind got hot," Bai Zioxi said a little guiltily. "It would be better if he wasn't impulsive." But Yu Yu immediately coaxed his daughter-in-law and said, "Ah, my baby really cares about me. She loses her mind when it comes to me. She really loves me so much." Bai Zioxi blushed immediately. Everyone else silently gave Yu Yu a thumbs up. But as for what to do, no one has an idea. Yu Yu finally looked at Qin Xian and Ji Fei. "What are your ideas? Ji Fei is only responsible for eating melons. How can she have any ideas? The most ridiculous thing is that she has never seen K Yuner until now. She thinks she will find out the details when she sees someone later?" Qin Xian said, "I suggest you take Bai Zioxi away first according to the original plan. After investigating the evidence, you can privately warn Yu Yi and K Yuner to let them recognize the reality and stop provoking you. Yu Yu quit immediately. Why let them go like this? If you want to retaliate against them privately, you can do it secretly, but I suggest you not to make it public, otherwise it will be very troublesome." Qin Xian continued, "I will send you the recording and information later, and you can choice." Ji Fei also didn't understand Qin Xian's approach. Could it be that he felt that everything was just a self-deceiving fantasy, and since the children were gone, it was not worth dealing with in a big way? Yu Yu is actually very convinced by Qin Xian. Generally speaking, Yu Yu will definitely listen to the suggestions he gives. But at this moment, other friends didn't understand Qin Xian's approach. It's just Yu Yu's private matter, and the final decision-making power still belongs to Yu Yu. Because the music outside had stopped, it was obvious that the wedding was over, and perhaps the toasts had begun, so everyone decided to go down first to leave some space for the young couple to discuss what to do. But before leaving, Qin Xian walked at the end and said a word to Yu Yu. No one else heard, but Ji Fei couldn't help but be curious, so she leaned forward secretly to eavesdrop. Qin Xian naturally noticed it and let her listen. Yu Yu still looked at Qin Xian with a puzzled look on his face, obviously puzzled by his suggestion of almost giving in. As a result, he was stunned by Qin Xian's words in the next second, and his face suddenly changed. The recording is not over yet, and Bai Zioxi's physical condition has been exposed. After saying that, Qin Xian took Ji Fei away. And Ji Fei finally reacted. Yes, if K Yuner is forced into a corner and breaks the pot, then Bai Zioxi's secret will definitely be exposed. Compared with Bai Zioxi causing K Yuner to have a miscarriage, the inability to have a child is more serious for the Yu family. Even if there are great benefits, the Yu family will refuse the marriage. No wonder Qin Xian gave such advice. Oh, my husband is so careful, so gentle, and so comprehensive. I forgot about this, he. Ji Fei immediately took Qin Xian's arm like a fangirl, staring at Qin Xian's handsome profile. Qin Xian was praised and his heart was filled with honey. The sight was so strong that Qin Xian blushed and turned to look at Ji Fei, and he was met with a bright smile. Qin Xian thought that since he had made his wife happy, he should be able to ask for a reward. So he was caught off guard and a kiss fell gently. At this moment, the small group turned back because they did not keep up, and they were shocked when they saw it. It was almost as fresh as the melon they had just eaten. Although they had known that the relationship between the two was different, especially Qin Xian's attitude towards Ji Fei. But this was the first time they saw Qin Xian kissing a girl. It turned out to be, is it like this? Shy as a young man, is this still the vigorous and decisive President Qin in the business world? After all, Qin Xian used to be in a platonic relationship, and there would be no such degree of intimacy. So for them who had known each other for many years, this scene was so fresh that they wanted to take out their mobile phones to take pictures immediately. However, although the two have been married for many years, they are like a newly born couple. After the kiss, they were too shy to look at each other, especially when they saw other people looking at them. They immediately became flustered. It can only be said that the wedding of the two will have to wait. Downstairs, Yu's father was angry. Yu is too unreasonable, where did he run off to? Yuner also looked around the whole place. After all, Yu, as Yu's father's son, should be present at the ceremony just now. At this moment, everyone was speculating whether Yu opposed this wedding. But Yuner couldn't help but feel palpitations in her heart. Could it be that Yu was shaken and didn't want her to marry Yu's father? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 309. Ji Fei's attention was diverted by Qin Xian's sudden kiss, and when she saw Yuner in a wedding dress, her attention was instantly diverted back. Almost like a cat seeing fresh fish, her eyes lit up. Yuner, I finally see someone. That expression made Qin Xian, who was watching her from the side, couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Qin Xian, when will Ji Fei look at me with such crazy eyes? At the same time, the harsh voice finally reached the Qin family who had just been toasted. Everyone had seen big scenes, and instantly understood that Ji Fei finally saw Yuner. So the Qin family looked at Yuner with warm eyes. They were all thinking about what kind of gossip was going on. By the way, only Qin 11 couldn't hear the voice. At this time, he was being praised by Yu's father and Yuner for the auspicious words he had just said, and was also given a red envelope. After the two left, Qin 11 couldn't help but say, "Mom, I think that Auntie just now doesn't like Grandpa Yu." The three members of the Qin family almost burst out laughing. Auntie, Grandpa, these titles are really hard to call, but what Qin 11 said is interesting. Everyone looked at Qin 11 in surprise. Although Qin 11 couldn't hear Ji Fei's inner voice at ordinary times, she often sat on the carpet in the living room to play games, surrounded by a group of people gossiping and eating melons, and she was also influenced by what she saw and heard, and her perception was sharp. "Why do you say that?" Qin Yan couldn't help asking. "It just feels that she dislikes the uncle. Just now, the uncle wanted to hug her, and she deliberately walked away to avoid it. Qin 11 said. Mother Qin smiled and said, our Zioxy is really observant. Ahem, hush, keep it down. Dad Qin quickly made a gesture to keep the guests around from hearing it, which would be a joke. However, the three members of the Qin family felt extremely sarcastic when they looked at the newlyweds going away. They didn't know how Kayuner usually behaved, but now she seemed to be a little wild. Of course, what they are most curious about now is whether Ji-Fei can dig out some new big news. Although they heard that today might not be the time for breaking news, they still want to eat the fresh news firsthand. Ji-Fei naturally lived up to everyone's expectations, and the first thing she exclaimed was the big news. How crazy, I didn't notice before that Kayuner did mention that Yu's father was incapable of getting her pregnant. Now it's strange that she is so sure. It turns out that she is so cruel. This is also in the name of love. There is no need to elaborate on this sentence. Those who can hear the inner voice almost immediately think of the key. So, Yu's father completely lost his fertility, not naturally but artificially. And it was Kayuner who did it? She didn't want to have Yu's father's child from the beginning? After she was forced to marry Yu's father, she kept giving him the kind of rejuvenation medicine, which was the most harmful, and some incompatible foods, which finally completely cut off Yu's father's chance of having children. She thought that since Yu was sacrificed by the Yu family and married into the Bai family, he should get all the family property, instead of having others take away everything that belonged to Yu. She was even more unwilling to give birth to a child for Yu's father. She came to this family just to stay with Yu. Ji-Fei looked at Yu's father silently, and saw that he was still smiling and toasting, and from time to time he looked at Kayuner's belly, which was actually deflated, with loving eyes. Light a candle. Qin family, so crazy, too crazy, crazy. Qin Xian, sympathy for my brother. But it's also strange to say this. If Kayuner was really so obsessed with Yu, why would she be willing to use the child in her belly to frame Bai Zioxy? After all, she always believed that the child was Yu's. Was it really an accident, or was Kayuner just so crazy? In fact, this is also a point that Ji-Fei is very concerned about, so other things are temporarily skipped, and Bai Zioxy's pushing of people is taken care of first. Nima, Guoyelan really guessed it right, that is, deliberately pulling Bai Zioxy's hand and pretending to fall, because at that time she knew that the child was already dead in the womb. Qin family, this, I have only heard that some wealthy families have messy relationships and various frame ups before, but this time I really saw it alive. Qin Xian's eyes flashed, and he thought of a way for Yu. It was impossible to prove it before, so it was easy to be controlled. Now, we just need to carefully investigate whether Kayuner has privately visited other hospitals, whether there has been a diagnosis of fetal arrest, and when it was. It was also thanks to Ji-Fei's voice. If there was no melon, no one would think of investigating a pregnant woman who lost her child after such an accident. Tisk tisk tisk, what a high-sounding reason. She was still thinking that she was framing Bai Zioxy in order to help Yu get rid of the shackles of the marriage. After all, if she had a miscarriage, the Yu family would not easily accept Bai Zioxy, a woman who might frame the family's offspring for profit. Qin family, haha, why are we so unconvinced? If you really think so, shouldn't you have revealed it earlier? Why are you hiding it? Qin Xian can completely guess how Kayuner will deceive herself. The so-called justice design is nothing but a blatant frame-up. No matter how much she deceives herself on the surface, as long as she is not confused in the deepest part of her heart, Ji-Fei can dig it out. Haha, in fact, at that time Kayuner had already felt that Yu's feelings for Bai Zioxy might not be what she imagined. Sure enough, Yu's love for Bai Zioxy was so obvious, and who could not see it unless he was blind? It just so happened that the child was stillborn, which also stimulated her. She was afraid that she would never be able to tie Yu down again, so she had a crooked mind. In the end, She took advantage of it and let Bai Xiaoxi take the blame for the miscarriage, trying to break up Yu Yu and Bai Xiaoxi, and also used this to seduce Yu Yu to give her another healthy child, so that she would be completely tied to Yu Yu. Some relationships are difficult to stop once they start. Even if they want to stop, Xuanhuan can use what has happened to continue to threaten Yu Yu to maintain the stepmother literature. The Qin family was shocked when they heard it. They were really blinded by desire and dared to do such things. Qin Xian sneered in his heart. This kind of person is no longer crazy or insane, but bad, really bad. No, in her opinion, it is not a threat, but a reason and step for Yu Yu to indulge himself, because in Xuanhuan's opinion, she and Yu Yu still had an old relationship, so she felt that the stepmother literature could work, and the relationship with Bai Xiaoxi was just because of time. So she is still very narcissistic, thinking that because of the recent events and the fact that she is now truly married to Yu's father, Yu Yu is beginning to be unable to let go. Oh my god, how can she be so dreamy? Even if daydreaming is free, you can't do this. After the wife of a wealthy family was read by her mind, the melon field was full of wild animals. Author, Yuze. Chapter 310. The Qin family members were too lazy to complain. Everyone looked over and saw that Yu's father and Xuanhuan had already discovered the small group coming down and found Yu Yu among them. Xuanhuan looked at him infatuatedly, but Yu Yu just gave her a cold look at first, and then he was defeated under that perverted gaze, feeling uncomfortable all over, and could only avoid her gaze and look at Bai Xiaoxi madly. The other people in the small group also saw Xuanhuan's resentful eyes looking at them, and they were really disgusted, but they couldn't help laughing when they saw it inexplicably. Yu Yu was so miserable. Because he listened to Qin Xian's advice, Yu Yu could only endure it temporarily and let things go here first. But he didn't expect his father to ask him to toast together. Well, with his identity here, Yu Yu had no choice but to go to the execution ground under the sympathetic eyes of his friends. When everyone returned to their seats, they were not in the mood to eat, and they all stared at the situation over there. After all, this kind of shura field is rare. Father Yu in the middle was completely unaware, while the bride on one side was full of her stepson, and she was fantasizing about discussing having a baby with him later. And this stepson was so awkward that he wanted to be as far away from Xuanhuan as possible, which made his father glare at him several times and remind him to get closer. 3 seconds of silence for Yu Yu, ha 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 ha. Just now Xuanhuan wanted to touch Yu Yu with her body when she turned around, and wanted to play a little private ambiguity, which scared Yu Yu so much that he almost jumped up. I guess he would have to throw away his clothes when he turned back. Qin Xian didn't want to be so unsympathetic, but he was still amused by Ji-Fei's statement. Not to mention the Qin family, who followed Ji-Fei's broadcast and followed to dig up the details. Qin's mother, did Xuanhuan exchange glances, but Yu Yu turned his head directly. Qin Yan, look. Did Xuanhuan want to take the opportunity to refill the drink and deliberately take the wrong wine glass with Yu Yu, but Yu Yu quickly took the wine glass back. Dad Qin, Yu Yu is wiping his sweat. Ugh, she actually handed Yu Yu a handkerchief in front of her husband. Ha ha ha, Yu Yu is walking on thin ice at this moment. The small group also saw something. Bai Xiaoxi was so wrong that she couldn't sit still when she saw Yu Yu being thought of like this. Guo Yelan complained, Yu Yu is so pitiful, are we just going to watch him like this? What else can we do if we don't watch him? Luo Fei raised his eyebrows helplessly. Jing Yan coughed, he will keep his innocence. Sen Ting almost spit out the tea after taking a sip. Soon, the 3 people who were toasting came over. Bai Xiaoxi immediately walked to Yu Yu's side, looked at him with concern, and then looked at Xuanhuan as fiercely as a cat with its tail between its legs but trying to show its teeth. But at this time, Bai Xiaoxi's eyes were still slightly red and swollen because she cried too hard before. Xuanhuan's attention was on Yu Yu, so she naturally saw Bai Xiaoxi. Then her eyes lit up when she saw him. And Ji-Fei just drank the toast, saw what K-Yuner was thinking, and immediately coughed, scaring everyone. Qin Xian quickly hugged Ji-Fei and patted her back. As an elder, Yu's father also showed concern. Are you okay? Ji-Fei finally stopped coughing. She didn't dare to say anything on the surface, but she was complaining crazily in her heart. Of course I have something wrong, your wife is annoying me. This kind of gossip is really. K-Yuner actually thought that Bai Zioxi had cried. It must be that Yu and Bai Zioxi had a quarrel, and it must have been because of her. She was proudly speculating whether Yu had surpassed Bai Zioxi in his heart. Qin Xian immediately looked at K-Yuner unhappily. Why did she use such a self-righteous mind to annoy my wife? He, I'm fine. I just choked. Ji-Fei said. Father Yu looked at Ji-Fei strangely, and then went to toast the next table. Qin Xian was quite sensitive to the way others looked at Ji-Fei, and was just wondering what Father Yu meant by that last look. Then he found out that Ji-Fei had noticed it too. What does it mean to look at me? Haha, I laughed. It turned out that this old man had also heard the gossip about me. Now that everything is going well, he is still proud in his heart, thinking that it was indeed a joke, and even if it was not a joke, it proved that his marriage was good. Father Yu, you are really too confident. The Qin family also heard. Melon, yes, and it's very big. I'm afraid this old guy can't bear it. I can only say that not exposing it on the spot is a kind of mercy. I guess many people present are quite regretful. After all, at this generation's wedding, so many young people are probably here for the title of the rich and powerful, hoping to witness the metaphysics on the spot. It's good that there was no trouble, otherwise Fifei's hat would not be taken off. Just thinking about it, suddenly there was a noise at the door. I saw a woman in luxurious clothes rushing in, shouting madly at Yu's father, "Old Yu, you can't marry this bitch deceived you, the child in her belly is not yours at all." This sentence was like thunder, exploding the whole audience, and the whole audience was in an uproar. Ji-Fei's mouth was open and couldn't close. People who knew the inside story were also stunned. They were originally planning to spend the wedding safely. Why did Chen Yaojin show up halfway? Who is that? Qin Xian asked Ji-Fei out of curiosity. Jing Yan knew more about this aspect. Yu had a stepmother because his father divorced and dumped her after he set his eyes on K-Yuner. Then he reported the name and identity of the previous stepmother. Nurse. Nurse. So that's how it is. The Qin family became excited. How about it? What on earth is that? How did my predecessor know about such a secret thing? Qin Xian also became suspicious. In fact, although it was K-Yuner who caused Yu's father to lose fertility, she was not sure whose child she was pregnant with at the time, so she had done a test before. She didn't find Yu's stuff, but she could use Yu's father, as long as it proves that there is no father-son relationship. Anyway, in her opinion, she only has these two men. The test result was naturally not that of Yu's father. She decided it was Yu's. It's just that she went to a private hospital to conceal her identity in order to secretly take a test, but she didn't know that it happened to be the hospital that her ex-wife invested in after the divorce. Naturally, her ex-wife checked who had taken away her position as wife, and met K-Yuner. Now he hit the muzzle of the gun directly. Someone grabbed the handle, and he specifically chose today to cause trouble and take revenge. Sure enough, the next second, the ex-wife's sister revealed even more exciting news. Not only is the child not yours, but it is related to you by blood. Do you know what this means? She hooked up with a man in your family behind your back. This time the thunder is getting worse. Everyone present showed shocked expressions. It's really exciting.